RJ says, what's something that you've done which helps you stand out and has helped you grow your social channels using interviews?
I think phenomenal edits, right? I'm a little biased in that I love to do these interviews. To be honest with you, when I started doing interviews, I'll be very honest, I didn't do it to build a brand or make money or any of that. I was just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was the #1 sales rep at Tesla, and I just got tired of sitting down and selling cars to people living their dreams. I wanted to be, I wanted to be buying the Tesla and not selling it, so to speak. And so, for me, it was like from the beginning, I wanted to do it. I love to do it. So I would say find a way to enjoy it because it'll naturally stick out. I'll give you a practical answer, but I have to start from the energetic internal because I totally believe it's true. And I'm sure Chris and Travis, you guys can relate to it. Like a lot of times we get more credit. Like we weren't smart enough to get the views we got. Like some of it maybe, but like we just loved it so much that we're willing to do it, or it translates well, or the guests love it, or it gets compliments from them, right? So these types of things. So that's very important to find a way to do it in a way you enjoy. That's the first thing. Number 2 is I would say lean into what you enjoy, in the sense that, like, for me, I loved Howard Stern, right? Like I loved his interviews, maybe not his politics, but I loved his interviews. And I loved how, Bradley Cooper comes into the studio, and instead of like a Jimmy Kimmel interview where it's like, how's the new movie, or, something a little bit more topical, Bradley Cooper is like, holy cow, man, what's it like to make 20 million a movie? You know what I mean? Like 5 years ago, you were a struggling actor. Now you're making you're making like 25 million. You did 4 movies. You did what, like $100 million bucks, dude? How does that feel? That's question 1. So right away, like no matter what's in the rest of the interview, like I want to see that. And so I always tell podcasters, like, your first question, in my opinion, matters a lot, not just to you, but also to the guest. Because if you feel good about it, if you know what it is, if it wins the audience's trust, they're gonna stay the ride with you. So that's kind of like a little tangible thing. The second thing, and I think it's more relevant to today, is intros. I think intros are so important. Like to me, I literally spend 75% of my time reviewing intros, in terms of like whenever I'm, I have my team doing it all, but if I pop in for meetings, 75% of it is nitpicking intros more than anything else. Because the just think about you guys, like go to YouTube, watch your search history, watch any of the videos that you actually finish to the end. I guarantee you 100% of them, the intro to some capacity earned your trust. And the ones you popped out at, it's because, so that it matters. Like the first 90 seconds are not equal. I'm telling you, we did a video where we literally just changed the intro from a more simple one to a more complex and dynamic one. And it went from 3,000 views to 500,000 views. Another thing we did is we'll change thumbnails periodically. I've had lifts of something going from 40,000 to like 500,000 or 200,000 or 150,000 or whatever it is, just because of us changing the thumbnail. So obviously that might be a little more advanced for some of you guys who are just starting, but on a micro level, it exists on a macro, but on a micro level, little things like that matter and can affect your growth and momentum. And once you get one little momentum, boom, all these doors open, and now you can leverage it to get the next interview and the next interview and the next one and the next one. And a lot of times it's like, it's so much about leverage. Like a lot of you may be thinking, I can't get a big name, or I can't get a this, or I can't get a that, but you'll be blown away. Like I've helped over the years, I've consulted and helped a lot of people just starting. I've had people who like their first podcast was with like a billionaire, and like Gary Keller, and like you'll be blown away at how many people will do interviews to promote a book. You know what I mean? Like RJ Ahmed, like shout out to RJ. RJ's been hustling. I'm stoked that he's in good hands learning from you guys, because RJ interviewed like Russell Brunson, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he's like in India off Zoom. Like
in Pakistan.
In Pakistan, yes, in Pakistan. So he's in Pakistan off Zoom in a totally different time zone, talking to Russell Brunson's, but us here in the States on a 2-hour time difference are like, oh, what are the odds? you know what I mean? So it's like, it's take action, and more doors will open than you realize. The common denominator between people that make a full-time career out of content creation and don't is that the people that do decided and then figured it out. They didn't like try it out. They decided, I'm going to do it. And then everything was just about an inevitable reality. It's just a matter of how and when, not if, And so shout out to RJ for doing that, because he's somebody in the space that, like, I mean, look at his setup, right? Like it's just commitment, and it doesn't take that much time, doesn't take that much energy. A lot of times it's just the cycles of limiting beliefs that hold people back. It's not so much the technical, right? It's the mental. So kudos to you on that, RJ. But I hope that kind of answers your question and then also gives context to the audience on how they
Yeah,
can.
100%. Thank you so much for that. We actually started to revamp our intros. Like I posted it earlier today in school as well. We're kind of like revamping those intros as well. But yeah, that was super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add to the point about sorry, I forgot to finish up the thing about the Howard Stern thing, is I love Howard Stern, and I would see in his interviews that in the beginning they would film the guest in the locker room and they go, "What do you think about the interview today with Howard?" And they show the guest and they're like, "Man, I was nervous. Like I was kind of scared." And like, Howard's not easy. Howard's not. So they hype it up so much that I'm like, damn, what the hell happened? Right. And so what I started doing in my interviews is we would film, if you guys check out my interviews, right at the top of every interview, it starts with a testimony from the guest. So it's not, so right away, you're hearing it from them. Forget us trying to win your trust. The guest here is telling you, like, if you look at my intros, the guest will be like, "Just wrapped up my interview today with Omar. It was freaking awesome. We talked about this. And to be honest, I've never shared this stuff anywhere before. We talked about this. They're my interviews. And I'm like, usually I don't watch my own stuff because it's just weird for me. But then I see it, I'm like, dang, I want to know what it is, So like, think about that. Like in the beginning, we didn't have a lot of time or technical know-how on how to do crazy edits. So we just recorded testimonies of the interview and then stripped them to the front. Very high leverage. You guys get what I'm saying here? Is this making sense? Is this starting to like, is this starting to like make sense that there's all these creative little ways? You just got to be willing to be, I heard a quote once, it changed my entire life in business and content. It said, instead of thinking yourself as a content creator and a business owner, think of yourself as a scientist and just follow the scientific experiment. You make a hypothesis, you test it by creating a piece of content, you have variables and constants, then you produce a result, you see what happens, and then you iterate the next one based on the findings from the last one. Scientific method. And if you do that 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times, pretty soon things start working, you make money, your beliefs that limit you kind of go away. And so little by little, you sort of experiment your way into success, if that makes sense. I've interviewed the top people in the world, and trust me, a lot of them are not any more smart than you. The difference is that they're just willing to experiment on a longer time horizon until it works.